She stood on that wooden platform with chains on her wrists and a brand burned into her skin. The letter W, for Webb, the man who owned her. 9 women had already been sold. Clara was last. The auctioneer called out her price, and the crowd laughed. "Damaged goods," they whispered. "Returned merchandise." Then a voice silenced them all. $200. A stranger stepped forward, a rancher named Caleb Dawson. A man whose wife and baby died 3 years ago. A man who hadn't smiled since. He didn't look at her body. He looked at her hands, at the blood where her nails had cut into her palms from refusing to break. But here's what no one expected. When they reached his cabin, he handed her a knife and said, "Sleep with this under your pillow. If I ever make you feel unsafe, use it." This wasn't a purchase, this was a rescue. But the man who branded her? He was coming to take back what he believed was his, and this time he was bringing an army. What you'll discover, your body can be chained, but your soul can never be caged. The meaning, being saved is just the beginning. True freedom comes when you learn to save yourself. If you believe every survivor deserves a second chance at life, hit that subscribe button now. Drop a comment. Have you ever been underestimated by everyone except the one person who truly saw you? Share this story with someone who needs to know that healing is possible, even after the deepest wounds. That morning, June 14th, 1878, the summer sun beat down hard on Brackett, Texas. Clara stood on that wooden stage, her wrists rubbed raw. The ugly raised W branded on her skin was a constant throbbing reminder that she was Marcus Webb's property. The auctioneer barked, "Step on up, girl, let the folks get a good look." When Clara didn't move, a rough hand shoved her forward, and she nearly fell. The crowd just laughed. A whole mess of people had gathered, men with hungry eyes and women who looked right through her. The auctioneer wiped sweat from his face and said, "Now, gentlemen, this one's a fine piece of property, young, strong, and her last owner says she can read and write. Trained as a healer's assistant, real useful around the house." Useful. The word made Clara's stomach churn. She had been useful to Marcus Webb for 18 long months, right up until she tried to run. He had 2 of his men hold her down while he pressed that white-hot branding iron into her skin. "You belong to me," he had told her while she screamed. The bidding started at $30. She kept her eyes fixed on the wooden planks beneath her feet. Looking up was defiance, and defiance always earned you pain. The price crept up, $40, $45. She was damaged goods, and everyone could see the brand. $50. "Do I hear 55? The auctioneer called out. For a moment there was only silence. A tiny bit of hope flickered in Clara's chest. 55, a new voice called out. Clara's blood ran cold. She knew that voice. It was Silas Kane, Webb's right-hand man, the very man who had held her down for the branding. He was grinning at her now, showing his yellow teeth. 55 for the little rabbit. Someone else bid 60, but Silas shot back without even blinking. 70. Mr. Webb sends his best, Clara. He's been missing you. The other bidder just shook his head and backed away. Clara felt her knees about to give out. Going back to Webb was a death sentence. He'd promised her that much. The auctioneer called out, $70, going once, going twice. A new voice cut through the air like a gunshot. 200. Every head in the crowd turned. A tall man stood at the back. He had dark hair and a jaw that looked like it was cut from stone. He was dressed like a working rancher in dusty boots and a worn shirt, with his sleeves rolled up to show strong arms. His hat was pulled down low, hiding his eyes. $200, he repeated, his voice low and steady as a slow-moving storm. Silas Kane's nasty grin vanished. "Now, hold on a minute. Who in the hell are you?" The stranger ignored him and walked right through the crowd, which parted for him like he was a river rock. He stopped in front of the platform and looked square at Silas. "You gonna bid higher?" Silas's face turned ugly with rage. "You don't know who you're messing with." "That girl belongs to Marcus Webb," Silas snarled. The stranger's voice was quiet, but carried a weight that made Silas hesitate. "No one belongs to anyone. Are you bidding or not?" Silas spat. "Webb will hear about this." The stranger just said, "Let him." He then turned to the auctioneer. 200. Are we done here?" The auctioneer looked from Silas to the stranger, then down at the pile of gold coins the stranger was pulling from a leather pouch. $200 in gold was a fortune. "Sold," the auctioneer said, grabbing the coins. "Sold to the gentleman for $200. Silas reached for the gun on his hip, but the stranger's hand was faster. So fast Clara barely saw it move. 1 second Silas was going for his pistol. The next he was staring down the barrel of a Colt revolver. "Walk away," the stranger said. "Webb will kill you," Silas warned. The stranger replied, "He can try." Silas spit in the dirt, turned, and shoved his way out of the crowd. The stranger put his gun away and stepped up onto the platform. Clara flinched, but he just spoke softly. "Easy now. I'm not going to hurt you." He reached out, and Clara shut her eyes tight, her whole body shaking. She heard 2 quick clicks. The heavy shackles fell from her wrists. When she opened her eyes, he was already stepping back, the key in his hand. He wasn't looking her over like some piece of meat. He was looking at her face, right into her eyes, like she was an actual person. "Can you walk?" he asked. She could only nod. "My horse is over at the livery," he said. "It's a good ride from here." He jumped down from the platform and then looked back up at her. "You coming?" Her legs felt weak, but she made them work. She climbed down, and the crowd moved away from her, not out of respect, but because they didn't want to be near a woman branded like livestock. She followed him through the dusty streets. At the livery, 2 horses were waiting. He pointed to the smaller one. "You know how to ride?" she heard herself whisper. "Yes." It was the first word she had spoken all day. He nodded. "Good. My place is about 12 miles out. We ought to make it by sundown." He helped her onto the horse, his hands quick and professional, then mounted his own. They rode out of Brackett without anyone trying to stop them. Soon the town was gone, replaced by rolling hills of golden grass under a sky so big it almost hurt to look at. For over an hour they rode without a word. Clara's mind was a storm of questions. Who was this man, and what did he really want? Men didn't spend that kind of money without expecting something in return. As the sun started to dip low, the stranger slowed his horse. "My name is Caleb Dawson," he said, not looking at her. "I have a small ranch up ahead." Clara stayed quiet. He continued, "I know what you're thinking. A man pays that much for a woman. He expects something." Her hands gripped the reins tighter. He finally turned, and she saw his eyes were a clear, honest gray. "I don't want what you think. I need help on the ranch. Cooking, cleaning, minding the garden. It's honest work. I'll pay you a fair wage, room and board included." Clara found her voice. "Why? Why would you do this?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment before he answered. "I had a sister once. Her name was Lily. She got tangled up with a man like the one who branded you." His eyes glanced at her wrist for just a second. "I couldn't save her. I was too late. She died in a place just like that saloon you came from. I can't bring Lily back, but I can do this," continued. "But when I saw you on that platform, I saw her, and I thought maybe I could at least save someone." They rode in silence for a spell. Then Clara asked, "What if I want to leave?" "Then you leave. I will give you money, a horse, and supplies. You can go wherever you want. I am not your owner. I am offering you a job, nothing more. And if I stay, what is expected of me?" Caleb's jaw tightened. "The work I mentioned. That is all. I will not touch you. I will not come near you unless you want me to. You will have your own space, your own room." The door locks from the inside. Clara studied his profile, the strong nose and the weather-beaten skin. He looked like a man who had seen hard times but came through them with his honor. But so had Marcus Webb once. Men were good at hiding their true selves. How do I know you are telling the truth? Caleb reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a knife, a good one with a leather-wrapped handle. He held it out to her, handle first. You keep this. Sleep with it under your pillow. If I ever do anything that makes you feel unsafe, you use it. Clara stared at the knife. This had to be a test. No man would arm a woman he planned to control. Take it, Caleb said. It is not a trick. Slowly, Clara reached out and took the knife. It was heavier than she expected, solid and real. The ranch is just over that ridge, Caleb said, turning his horse forward. You can decide tonight what you want to do. Stay or go. Either way, you are free now. No one is going to put chains on you again, not while I am breathing. When they reached the top of the ridge, Clara saw the ranch below. A sturdy cabin, a barn, a corral with horses and pastures with cattle. It was not grand, but it was solid, honest. As they rode down, a big yellow dog with a scarred ear and a crooked tail came bounding out to meet them. It barked once, then trotted happily beside Caleb's horse. That is Duke, Caleb said. I found him on the road 3 years back, half dead. It took a long time for him to trust me. He glanced at Clara. But he came around eventually. Clara looked at the dog, then at Caleb. The knife was warm in her hand. She did not trust this man. Trust was something she had given up long ago. But for the first time in 18 months, she felt a tiny flicker of hope instead of fear. That night, Clara stood in the small room Caleb gave her. It was a real room with a bed, a dresser, and a window. The door had a lock, just as he had promised. She had already tested it 3 times. Caleb had made a simple supper of beans and cornbread, and they ate in silence. He asked her nothing about her past and made no demands. After dinner, he grabbed a blanket. Where are you going? Clara asked. To the barn. I will sleep out there. This is your house now. I reckon you will feel safer with some space between us. He paused at the door. Lock up behind me. Do not open it for anyone, including me, unless you feel safe. Then he was gone. Clara stood at the window, watching the barn where a lamp glowed in the loft. She wondered what he was planning. Men always planned something. She looked down at the knife in her hand. She had kept it with her all evening, even at the dinner table. Caleb had not said a word about it. The brand on her wrist caught her eye. The ugly, raised W. Webb's mark of ownership. A sudden urge to take the knife and slice that piece of skin away made her hand shake. But not tonight. Tonight, she would wait and watch. She would see if Caleb Dawson was really different. And if this was all just another trap with prettier bars, she would be ready. Clara lay on the bed, fully clothed, with the knife clutched to her chest. Through the window, she saw the stars emerge, bright against the Texas sky. She thought about Caleb's sister, Lily. She thought about the dog with the scarred ear. She thought about how Caleb had looked at her face instead of her body. How he had unlocked her chains without demanding anything in return. And she thought about Marcus Webb, who would soon learn his property had been stolen. He would come for her. She knew that with total certainty. Webb always came for what was his. But for the first time in 18 months, Clara Whitmore was not alone. For reasons she could not explain, that made all the difference. She did not sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to the crickets and the horses. She waited for the sound of hoofbeats or a door being forced open. But the only sound was the wind, gentle as a lullaby. And somewhere in the barn, a man slept on hay because he wanted a stranger to feel safe. The sun rose over the Dawson ranch. Clara Whitmore was still awake, still holding her knife, still waiting. But she was waiting in a room with a lock on the door, and that, she decided, was worth everything. Clara woke with the knife in her hand and sun on her face. For a moment she was confused. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet. Then she remembered. She sat up slowly, her body aching. Through the window she could see Caleb in the corral with a horse. Duke the dog sat watching his master. Clara touched the brand on her wrist. Still there. She got up, tucked the knife into her boot, and unlocked the door. The main room was empty. On the table was a covered plate with warm biscuits and honey. Beside it, a note in careful handwriting read, "Eat, rest, come out. When you are ready, no rush." Clara stared at the note. Marcus Webb had never left her notes. He had left bruises. She ate the biscuits slowly, tasting each bite. Then she washed her face, combed her hair with her fingers, and stepped out into the Texas morning. The heat was strong, but she welcomed it. Caleb looked up as she approached. "Sleep any?" Clara lied. He nodded as if he knew the truth, but would not press her. "There is coffee on the stove, black, same as me." He turned back to the young mare he was working with. She had wild eyes and a nervous stance. "This one is new. Her last owner broke her wrong. She does not trust people much." Clara watched the horse shy away from Caleb's hand. "What happened to her?" "Whipped too hard, too often. Now she flinches at everything." Caleb's voice was patient and steady. "I cannot blame her. She learned that hands mean pain. It is going to take time to teach her something different." Different. A knot formed deep in Clara's gut. He was talking about the horse, but she knew he was talking about her, too. "Can I help you?" The words tumbled out before she could catch them. Caleb gave her a surprised look. "You know your way around horses? My father was a doctor, but we had a little farm. I used to help with the stock when I was a girl. Before." The word hung in the air. Caleb watched her for a beat, then gave a nod toward the barn. "There's a bucket of oats in there. Bring it on out, and take it slow." Clara did just what he said. She found the oats and carried them back, moving the same way she'd learned to move around dangerous men. Smooth and steady with no quick moves. "Set it down right inside the fence," Caleb said, "then back away easy." Clara put the bucket down and stepped back. The mare's ears flicked forward. She wanted those oats something fierce, but she didn't trust the folks standing between her and her meal. "Now we wait," Caleb said. They stood there in the quiet as the sun climbed higher and the heat pressed down. Clara's dress was already sticking to her, but she didn't dare move. Neither did Caleb. After what felt like a lifetime, the mare took one careful step, then another. Soon, her nose was buried deep in the bucket, and she was eating like she was starved. "Don't you reach for her," Caleb said low. "Just let her eat. Let her get to feeling safe." Clara understood completely. They stood with that horse for another hour, never touching her, just letting her get used to them. By the time Caleb called a break, the mare was eaten from the bucket while they stood only a few feet off. "That's a start," Caleb said. "Small, but it's a start." Clara nodded. Her arms ached and her head was pounding from the sun, but she felt something she hadn't felt in a long, long time. Useful. "There is someone I want you to meet," Caleb said as they headed for the cabin. "Old May. Lives about a mile east of the creek. She's been helping me keep this place running since my wife passed on." Clara froze. "Your wife?" "5 years ago now. A fever took her." Caleb's voice was flat, but Clara saw the muscle jump in his jaw. "May got me through it. She's good people. She'll want to meet you." "Does she know?" Clara couldn't get the rest of the question out. "She knows I went to town, and she knows I came back with somebody who needed a hand." Caleb met her gaze straight on. "She does not pass judgment. She's seen her own share of hard times." They ate a quiet lunch of cold meat and bread before Caleb hitched up a small wagon. Clara climbed up next to him, the knife in her boot a solid, comforting weight, and they set off. Old May's cabin was smaller than Caleb's, but it was tended with care. Flowers bloomed in window boxes and chickens pecked around the yard. A woman appeared on the porch, maybe 60 years old, with silver hair and a tidy bun, and eyes that saw everything. "So this is her," May said as Clara climbed down. "This is Clara," Caleb said. "Clara, meet May Pritchard." May came down the steps, moving like someone whose joints had seen better days. She stopped right in front of Clara and looked her over. "Child, you look like you have been through hell." Clara almost smiled. I feel like it. I reckon you do. May's gaze fell to Clara's wrist, to the brand she'd tried to hide with her sleeve. May I? Clara paused, then slowly pushed her sleeve up. May stared at the angry raised W, and her face went hard as stone. Webb. I know of him. Heard the stories. May's voice was pure ice. A man like that is not fit to breathe God's air. She looked back at Clara. But you're breathing it now. That is all that matters. Clara pulled her sleeve down. For now. For now is all any of us get, May said, turning to Caleb. You did right bringing her here. But Webb will not let this go. You know it. I know. Are you ready for what is coming? Caleb's hand was already on his gun belt. I will be. May nodded, then looked back at Clara. You come see me whenever you need, child. Day or night. Sometimes it helps to talk to someone who understands. Understands what? May's smile held no warmth. I was a mail-order bride once. Came out here full of dreams to marry a man I had never laid eyes on. She paused. He was not a good man. It took me 3 years to get away from him, and another 5 before I stopped jumping at every loud noise. Tears pricked at Clara's eyes, the first she'd let herself feel in months. How did you get through it? 1 day at a time. Sometimes 1 hour at a time. May reached out and took Clara's hand, her grip surprisingly strong. You are going to be all right, child. I know it does not feel that way, but you will be. On the ride back to the ranch, Caleb was quiet. Clara watched the golden grass and scattered oaks roll by, thinking about May's words. 1 day at a time. She's strong, Clara said at last. May? She is the strongest person I know, Caleb said. She saved my life after Sarah died. I was aiming to drink myself into an early grave, but May would not let me. Sarah was your wife. Yes. Did you love her? Caleb was quiet for a long stretch. I did. She was kind and good, everything I am not. You seem kind enough to me. Caleb glanced over at her, his gray eyes holding something she could not quite read. Just give it time. You'll see the truth of me soon enough. They got back to the ranch as the sun was setting, brushing the sky with orange and purple. While Caleb unhitched the team, Clara went inside to start supper. It felt strange to be in his kitchen, but also comforting, in a way she had not known for years. She was chopping vegetables when she heard it, the thunder of hoofbeats coming up the road fast. More than one horse. Clara's blood ran cold. She pulled the knife from her boot and flattened herself against the wall, peeking out the window. 3 riders. Caleb was already moving, walking out to meet them with his hand resting on his gun. The riders pulled up about 20 feet from the cabin. Clara knew the man in front, a lean fella with a scar on his nose and cruel dark eyes. Silas Kane. Evening, Dawson, Silas called out. Mighty nice place you have here. It would be a real shame if something bad was to happen to it. What do you want, Kane? You know good and well what I want. Silas's eyes raked over the cabin, and Clara pulled back from the window. Mr. Webb is a patient man, but he is about at his limit. The girl belongs to him. You had no right to take her. I had $200. That gave me all the right I needed. That money has been returned. Silas threw a leather pouch to the ground, where it landed with a heavy thud. There. We are all square. Now send her on out. No. The word hung in the air, sharp as a crack of thunder. Silas's face twisted into a snarl. You are making a big mistake, Dawson. Webb has powerful friends, the sheriff for one. Then you tell the sheriff to come out here and talk to me himself. Oh, he will. And he will not be nearly as polite as I am being. Silas leaned forward. Last chance. Give us the girl and we will ride on out of here. Caleb's hand was a blur as he drew his pistol. Get off my land. For a long second, nobody moved. Then Silas let out a cold, ugly laugh. All right, Dawson. Have it your way. But this is not over. He spun his horse around and galloped off with his men right behind him. Clara watched them go, her heart hammering against her ribs. Caleb holstered his gun and picked up the pouch. He came back inside, his face like a storm cloud. They will be back, Clara said. I know. Maybe I should just go. If I leave? No. Caleb's voice was like iron. You are done running. If you run, they will catch you. And next time, Webb won't just brand you. He will put you in the ground. So what do we do? Caleb dropped the pouch on the table. We get ready. We make sure you can defend yourself. And we find a way to finish this for good. Clara just stared at him. This man who'd bought her, who was now risking his own life for a woman he barely knew. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? And do not tell me it is about your sister. That is not enough of a reason to die. Caleb was quiet for a long while. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. Because I am tired. Tired of what? Tired of watching bad men win. Tired of seeing good people get hurt while I do nothing. Tired of being the kind of man who just keeps his head down while the whole world around him burns to the ground. He met her eyes. Sarah always said I had too much fight in me for my own good. Maybe she was right. But I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees, knowing I could have helped someone and did not. Clara's mind raced, thinking of her daddy, a good man gone too soon. Then it went to her mother, who'd gone and married a monster. She saw the faces of all the folks who just looked away while she was hurt and broken. But then she thought of Caleb Dawson, the man who looked at her and saw a person worth saving. She took a deep breath. All right, she said. Teach me how to fight. Caleb just looked at her for a long second, then gave a slow nod. We'll start at first light. That night, Clara didn't stay in her room. She and Caleb sat in the main cabin, keeping watch, straining to hear the sound of horses. Duke, the dog, laid at their feet, his ears twitching at every little noise. Tell me about her, Clara said when the night was deep and quiet. Your wife. Caleb was silent for so long she figured he wouldn't answer. Sarah, he finally said, was pure sunshine. That's the only way to say it. She'd walk into a room and just light it up. How did y'all meet? Church social. I was 22, fresh from the war and skittish around people. Loud noises made me jump. He paused. Sarah? She just walked right up and asked if I wanted to dance. I told her I couldn't. She said, well, I'll teach you. Clara couldn't help but smile a little. And did she? Lord, I stepped on her feet so much she was bruised for a week. But she kept on teaching me. I learned just enough to get through our wedding dance. You must miss her something fierce. Every single day, Caleb's voice was steady, but the hurt was there. But it's been 5 years. Life's got to go on. They sat in a comfortable silence after that. Around 3 in the morning, Clara's eyelids felt like lead weights. Get some sleep, Caleb told her. I'll keep watch. I can't. You need to try. You're going to need your strength tomorrow. The fight went out of her. She lay down on the small couch, a knife still clutched in her hand, and closed her eyes. She dreamt of Marcus Webb. He was standing right over her, a branding iron glowing hot. You belong to me, he snarled. You'll always belong to me. She woke up with a scream caught in her throat and Caleb's hand on her shoulder. Easy now, he said softly. You're safe. It was just a bad dream. Clara's heart was hammering against her ribs. She could still feel the phantom heat of that iron. He was here. No, he wasn't. Look at me. Caleb's gray eyes were calm as a pond. You're in my cabin, doors locked. Nobody's getting to you tonight. Her breathing started to even out. That's when she realized the knife in her hand was pointed straight at Caleb's chest. I almost... But you didn't, he said, not even flinching. You knew who it was. That's good instinct. He walked over to the window to check the darkness. Sun will be up in a couple of hours. Best get some more rest. I can't. Not after that. Then we'll start your training early. Caleb turned back to her. You ever fired a gun before? Once. My daddy taught me when I was 12. Good. Then you know the basics. He went to a chest in the corner and pulled out a revolver. It was smaller than his, but solid. This was Sarah's. She could shoot the eye out of a hawk. Better shot than me, if we're being honest. He held the gun out to her, handle first. Clara took it. The weight felt different than the knife. Heavier, more final. With a gun, you could settle things from across the room. "Tomorrow, I'll teach you how to use it," Caleb said. "Tonight, just get the feel of it. Let it become a part of you." Clara looked down at the gun. "I've never killed anyone," she whispered. "Neither had I, once." Caleb's voice was flat. "Then the war came. I won't lie to you, Clara. Taking a life changes you. It breaks something inside that never quite heals right. But sometimes it's them or you. When that time comes, you have to be ready to choose you." Clara thought of all the men who had used her like she was nothing. "I can choose myself," she said, her voice firm. "I've been choosing everyone else for far too long." Caleb gave a slow nod. "Then we understand each other." They sat together until the first light of dawn. And as the sun came up over the ranch, Clara Whitmore was holding a gun for the first time in 11 years, learning how to be a woman who fights back. She didn't know if she'd survive what was coming. But she knew one thing for sure: she would never wear chains again, not for Marcus Webb, not for anybody. The crack of the gunshot echoed as Clara sent a tin can spinning off the fence post. "Again," Caleb said. Clara raised the revolver, took a breath, and fired. Another can went flying. "Good. Now faster." She fired 3 more quick shots. 2 cans fell. 1 stayed put. "You're pulling left on that last one," Caleb said. "Trust the gun." 2 weeks had passed just like that. 2 weeks of shooting at dawn and training with a knife at noon. Her hands were calloused and her arms were strong. The revolver that felt so foreign at first now felt like it belonged in her hand. "Again," Caleb ordered. Clara reloaded and emptied the gun. All 6 cans fell this time. Caleb nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. "You're a natural. Better than most fellas I served with. My daddy always said I was stubborn as a mule. Stubborn keeps you alive out here." They walked back to the cabin, Duke trotting along beside them. The Texas heat was getting fierce, the kind that made the air wiggle and every breath feel like work. But Clara hardly noticed anymore. "May's coming for supper," Caleb said. "Wants to check on you." "She doesn't need to worry about me." "She worries anyway, that's just May." Clara smiled. In 2 weeks, May had visited 4 times, bringing food and stories that made Clara laugh. The old woman had become a true friend. "There's something else," Caleb said, his voice turning serious. Clara stopped walking. "What is it?" "I rode into town this morning, heard some things." "What kind of things?" Caleb's jaw was tight. "Webb's putting together a posse, calling in favors from all over. Word is he's planning on coming for you himself." That old, cold fear tried to creep back in. "When?" "Don't know. Soon. The sheriff's been asking questions about my land, how many men I got working for me. He's trying to figure out if anyone will come looking if I disappear." Clara's hand went right to the gun on her hip. 2 weeks ago, she would have run. But 2 weeks ago, she didn't know how to shoot. And she didn't have folks willing to fight beside her. "I won't let you die for me," she said, her voice shaking just a little. "Ain't planning on dying," Caleb said, meeting her gaze. "But I ain't planning on letting them take you either. We knew this day was coming, Clara. Knowing and being ready are 2 different things. Then we better make damn sure we're ready." May showed up at sunset, and her wagon was loaded with more than just supper. She'd brought 2 rifles, a shotgun, and enough ammunition to fight off a small army. "Where in the world did you get all this?" Clara asked. "My late husband was a collector," May said, setting the shotgun on the table. "Mean old buzzard, but he knew his firearms. Been saving these for a special occasion. I reckon this qualifies." Caleb picked up a rifle. This is military grade, Springfield, accurate up to 500 yards in the right hands. May looked straight at Clara. You ever fire a rifle, child? No. Well, May said, we've got more work to do. Dinner was a tense affair. The quiet so thick you could feel it. Clara hardly noticed her food. All she could see was Webb's cruel smile and the branding iron he held. His voice echoed in her head, "You belong to me." "Stop that," May said, her voice sharp. Clara looked up, startled. "I know what you're thinking. You're letting that man win before the fight even starts." May reached out and took Clara's hand, her grip firm. "Fear is a weapon, girl. Don't you dare let him use yours against you. The person he hurt isn't sitting here anymore. You became someone new, someone stronger, the minute you decided to fight back." Clara glanced at the brand on her wrist. It was still there, but it seemed smaller now. "How do you stop being afraid?" she asked quietly. "You don't," May said. "You just learn to move anyway. Courage isn't about having no fear. It's about doing what has to be done even when your knees are knocking." After they ate, they got down to business. Caleb sketched a map of the ranch on an old piece of wood. He pointed out spots for defense, ways to get out, and places where they could get ambushed. Clara paid close attention, her mind working through every possibility. "If they come up the north road, we'll spot them from the loft," Caleb said. "That's our high ground. Clara, you'll be up there with the rifle. May, you take the shotgun and cover the back door. I'll stay on the ground and keep them occupied." "What about Duke?" Clara asked. "Duke will give us the first warning. He can hear a horse from a mile off," Caleb answered. He looked at them both. "The trick is to keep them at a distance. We take them down one by one and make them earn every single inch." "And if there are too many?" May asked. Caleb paused for a long second. "Then we head for the cellar. There's a tunnel to the creek. Dug it years ago, just in case." He looked straight at Clara. "The war taught me you always need another way out." They practiced their positions late into the night, moving like shadows in the dark cabin, until they knew every creak in the floorboards. By the time May headed home, Clara was bone-tired and her eyes stung from exhaustion. "You should get some sleep," Caleb told her. "I've got the first watch." "I can't sleep," she said. "Not tonight." "Then sit with me." They sat on the porch, their shoulders nearly touching, just staring into the blackness. The night was still, almost unnervingly so. "Tell me something about you," Clara said softly. "Something you've never told a soul." Caleb was quiet for what felt like a lifetime. "I killed my best friend during the war," he finally said. Clara turned to face him, stunned. "What?" "His name was Samuel. We grew up together, fought side by side for 3 years. Caleb's voice was flat, empty. "We were in Virginia, in a real bad fight. Samuel took a shot to the gut. There was nothing to be done, but he was alive and screaming. He paused, and she saw his hands ball into fists. He begged me to do it, said the pain was too much, said he didn't want to go slow." Caleb's jaw tightened. "So I did it. I put my pistol to his head while I held his hand." Clara was speechless. She reached out and put her hand on his arm, the first time she'd ever willingly touched him. Caleb flinched, then slowly settled. "I've never told anyone that, not even Sarah." "Why tell me?" she whispered. "Because you asked. And because I want you to know who I am before all this happens." Clara kept her hand on his arm. The touch was unfamiliar, but right. "I don't think you're a bad man," she said. "I think you did a terrible thing in a situation with no good choices." "Maybe," he said, turning to look at her. "Or maybe I'm just a killer. When I saw you on that auction block, something inside me knew. This is why I survived. So I could be here, right now, to help you." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. He looked away, back into the night. "I just thought you should know." They sat there in the quiet, but the space between them had gotten smaller. It wasn't gone, but it had shrunk enough for Clara to imagine, just for a second, what it might feel like to close it completely. All of a sudden, Duke's head shot up, his ears pointed forward. "What is it, boy?" Caleb asked. The dog let out a low growl, his eyes fixed on the darkness to the north. Caleb was on his feet in an instant, his gun in his hand. "Inside, now!" Clara scrambled into the cabin and grabbed the rifle. She climbed the ladder to the loft, her heart hammering against her ribs, and aimed out the window. For a long moment there was nothing but silence. Then she heard it, the pounding of hooves coming hard and fast. "One rider," Caleb called up from below. "Just one." Clara held her aim steady on the approaching shape. This could be a trick. The rider finally broke into the moonlight, and Clara gasped. It was a girl, maybe 17 years old, riding like her life depended on it. Her horse was slick with sweat, and Clara could see the pure terror on her face. "Help!" the girl cried out. "Please, somebody help me!" She reached the cabin and nearly fell from her horse right at Caleb's feet. "They're coming!" she gasped. "Webb's men! They burned our farm! They killed my pa!" She looked up at Caleb, her eyes wide with panic. "Ma told me to run, to find the man who bought Clara Whitmore. You have to help. They're going to kill us all." Clara came down from the loft, feeling a chill deep in her bones. "Who are you?" "Jenny Harlow. My family's place is 5 miles south of here," the girl said, shaking hard. "Webb has been asking everybody about you. My pa wouldn't talk, so they—" She choked on a sob. Clara knelt beside her. "How many men?" "A dozen. Maybe more," Jenny whispered. "They're headed this way. Ma said they'd be here by sunrise." Caleb's face was like stone. "Why didn't your mother come with you?" "They shot her in the leg," Jenny cried. "She told me to go, that she would hold them off." Clara looked at Caleb, her resolve hardening. "We have to help her. A woman is going to die because she protected me. I will not let that happen." "Innocent folks always get hurt." Caleb stood quiet for a second, thinking it through, then gave a firm nod. "Jenny, reckon you can lead us?" "Yes, but we need to move now." Clara was already saddling the horses. "I will get the guns." They worked fast. Caleb fell back on his years of army training, while Clara was driven by pure survival. In less than 10 minutes, they were mounted up and tearing toward the Harlow farm with Jenny out front. That 5-mile ride was hell, cutting across rough country in the pitch black. Clara's legs ached from holding on, but she never slowed. She couldn't, not when a woman was somewhere up ahead dying for her. They heard the shooting long before they saw the orange glow of the burning barn on the horizon. Caleb reined in his horse. "Clara, you and Jenny circle around back. Find Mrs. Harlow and get her out of there. What about you? I'm going to give Webb's men a different problem to solve." Before she could say a word, Caleb dug his heels in and charged straight for the fire, his pistol already barking. "Come on," Clara told Jenny. "Stay with me." "Stay?" They cut around the property line, staying low in the smoke and confusion. Clara's heart was pounding in her chest. This was a long way from shooting cans off a fence. This was the real thing. They found Mrs. Harlow slumped against the well behind the farmhouse, a rifle lying across her lap. A makeshift bandage on her thigh was soaked clean through with blood. "Ma," Jenny whispered. "Hush now, child." Mrs. Harlow's voice was faint but firm. "They will hear you." Clara was off her horse and by her side in a second. "Can you ride?" "I can hardly stand." "We will carry you then." Together they heaved the woman onto Clara's horse. Mrs. Harlow grunted with the pain but never cried out. She was tough as leather, the kind of tough that only a hard life can make. "My husband?" she asked. Jenny's face fell. "Ma, he is—" "I know." Mrs. Harlow shut her eyes for a moment. "He died keeping us safe, didn't he?" "Yes, Ma. Then he died a good death." She looked straight at Clara. "You are the one Webb is after." "Yes, ma'am." "Was it worth it? Us dying for you?" Before Clara could even think of an answer, more gunshots exploded right behind them. They were closer this time. "Ride!" Clara yelled at Jenny. "Get her away from here. What about you? I will cover you. Now go!" Jenny took the reins and galloped off, her mother holding on for dear life. Clara turned, rifle up, to face whatever was coming. Two men rounded the farmhouse and raised their guns. Clara fired first, and one man dropped, clutching his chest. The other jumped for cover, and her second shot missed. Before she could reload, he rose from behind the water trough, his pistol aimed square at her head. "Drop it! Mr. Webb wants you breathing, but I can still make it hurt." The rifle was empty. Her revolver was on her hip, but she would never make the draw. Just then a shot cracked from behind her, and the man's head jerked back. He crumpled to the ground. Clara spun to see Caleb, his pistol smoking, a gash bleeding on his forehead. "You hit?" he asked. "No, you are. Just a scratch." He grabbed her arm. "We have to go. More are coming." They scrambled onto his horse, and she wrapped her arms tight around his waist as they took off. The feeling was electric, but there was no time for that. Caleb spurred the horse into the night, leaving the burning Harlow farm behind them. They met Jenny at the creek. Her mother was out cold, slumped over in the saddle. "She needs a doctor," Jenny pleaded, her voice choked with tears. Caleb made a quick decision. "Old May used to be a midwife. She knows her way around a wound. We will take her there." They rode hard with Clara holding on to Caleb, feeling the steady beat of his heart. As if she was expecting them, May was on her porch when they arrived. "Bring her in," she said, not wasting a second. "Jenny, fetch me hot water and clean rags. Clara, hold that lantern still. Caleb, you stand watch." The rest of the night was a blur. May worked to cut the bullet from Mrs. Harlow's leg, her old hands sure and steady. By sunrise, the fever had broken. Mrs. Harlow was bandaged and sleeping. "She will make it," May announced. "She is a fighter." Clara leaned against the wall, the night finally catching up to her. She had taken a life, watched another end, and helped save a third. It was too much. Caleb came in, his face serious. "Riders. About 6 of them on the horizon." "Webb?" Clara asked. "Cannot tell for sure, but they are riding this way." May picked up her shotgun. "Well then, let's offer them a proper Texas welcome." Clara stood on shaky legs, her hands trembling as she checked her rifle. "Clara," Caleb said softly, "you do not have to do this." "Yes, I do." She looked him square in the eye. "This has always been my fight. I am just now ready to see it through." Something unspoken passed between them, a look of respect. Then the sound of hoofbeats grew louder, leaving no more time for talk. Clara took her place at the window and waited. Clara counted them through her rifle sight. 6 men. No, 7. One man sat taller in the saddle, hanging back from the rest. "That is Webb," she said, her voice a low whisper. "The one in the back. I am sure of it." Caleb squinted into the morning sun beside her. "You certain?" "I would know that shadow anywhere. I have seen it in my nightmares for 18 months. May cocked her shotgun. "Well, he is not getting what he came for. Not on my watch." One of Webb's men, a man with a scarred face, rode forward with his hands up. It was Silas Kane. "Morning, y'all," Silas called out. "Mr. Webb would like a word." "He can have it from there," Caleb hollered back. "Now that is not very neighborly." Silas stopped his horse about 30 feet out. "Mr. Webb is a reasonable man. He just wants what is his." Clara's grip on her rifle tightened. "I do not belong to anyone." Silas's ugly smile spread. "Well, listen to that." The little rabbit learned how to talk back. He leaned over his saddle. "You killed one of my boys last night. Mr. Webb was quite impressed. Said it proves he trained you right." "He did not train me. He broke me." Silas just chuckled. "Seems to me breaking and training are about the same thing when it comes to women and horses." Before Clara could blink, Caleb's gun was in his hand. "One more word like that and I will put a bullet right between your eyes. Easy there, cowboy." "I am just the messenger." Silas looked past him to Clara. "Mr. Webb has an offer. You come along peaceful-like and nobody else gets hurt. The old woman, you, the girl, and her ma, they all live. He gives his word." "His word is not worth a damn," Clara spat. Maybe so, but it is the only deal on the table. Silas's eyes went cold. You have got 5 minutes to think on it. After that, we are coming in, and we will not leave enough of this place to bury. He turned his horse and rode back. Clara's hands were shaking. 5 minutes to surrender or to sign everyone's death warrant. Do not you even consider it, May said, her voice like flint. You go with them, you just die slower. That is the only difference. May took Clara's arm. Child, Webb does not leave witnesses. He killed Mr. Harlow and burned their home. You think he will let us live after what we saw? She is right, Caleb said flatly. Webb makes examples, not promises. If we go out there, we are all dead. If we stay here, we have a fighting chance. Clara looked at the faces in the small cabin. May, fierce with a shotgun in her hands. Jenny, holding a pistol her mother taught her to use. And Caleb, his eyes meeting hers with a look of pure faith. These people were ready to die for her, a stranger they barely knew. Why? She asked, her voice breaking. Why are y'all doing this? Because it is the right thing to do, May said plainly. If folks like us do not stand up to men like Webb, we may as well just lie down in the dirt for them. Because you are worth fighting for, Caleb added, his voice low, whether you believe it or not. Tears stung Clara's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. There would be time for that later. Right now, it was time to fight. All right, she said. What do we do? Caleb stood in the middle of the floor. They'll come from the front. That's the direct way. But Webb is smart. He'll send men around to flank us. Jenny, you watch the back window. If anyone comes through, you shoot. Jenny nodded, her face grim. May, you have the front door. If anyone tries it, use both barrels. Clara, you and I will take the front windows. We'll pick them off as they ride in. He looked at all of them. If it goes bad, there's a root cellar under that rug. A tunnel leads out to the creek. That's how we get out. What if the tunnel is blocked? Clara asked. Then we fight until we can't, he said simply. Clara nodded. She knew this was coming. Every bit of peace she had found on this ranch was just borrowed time. Now the bill was due. Thank you, she said to the room, for all of this. Save your thanks for when we're done, May said gruffly. Now get to your spots. They moved into position. The cabin grew silent. Through the window, Clara saw Webb's men fanning out, getting ready. And right in the middle was Marcus Webb, looking like a gentleman in his fine suit, while he ordered men to their deaths. That was his specialty. He could smile while he was destroying you. Here they come, Caleb said. The riders charged forward. Clara fired, and a man tumbled from his saddle. She reloaded, fired again, and another horse went down. Beside her, Caleb shot with a calm, deadly aim. But there were so many of them. 2 men made it to the cabin and flattened themselves against the wall, out of her line of sight. She heard boots on the porch, then a heavy slam against the door. May's shotgun roared and the noise stopped. Got one? May called out. Then glass shattered behind them. Jenny screamed. Clara spun around and saw a man climbing through the broken window. She fired without a second thought, and the man fell halfway out of the window frame. May, are you hit? No, May's voice was shaky. He almost... Stay focused. There'll be more coming. Another group of riders was charging, so Clara turned back to the front. Her rifle was empty. She dropped it, pulled her revolver, and shot a man trying to get on the porch. He tumbled backward. The gunfire was a deafening roar, and the smoke burned her eyes, but she kept shooting. Beside her, Caleb was a machine. Reload, fire, reload, fire. His face set like stone. Then his gun clicked empty just as a man crashed through the window. Caleb met him with his bare fists, and the 2 went down, wrestling on the floor. Clara couldn't get a clean shot. She heard Caleb grunt as the man's knife slashed his arm. She didn't even think. She ripped the knife from her boot, launched herself at the attacker, and drove the blade deep into his shoulder. He screamed, letting go of Caleb, and Caleb finished him with one brutal punch. "You're hurt," Clara said, seeing the blood on Caleb's arm. The gunfire just stopped. A heavy silence fell over the ranch. Clara peeked through the broken window and saw them dragging their wounded away. "They're leaving," May said, her voice shaky. A cold feeling washed over Clara. This was not over. Then a voice cut through the quiet morning air. It was Webb. "Clara, I know you can hear me." He sat on his horse. "Calm as you please." Behind him, his men held a man between them. Clara's heart seized up. It was Thomas, May's brother. He was alive, and he was terrified. "May?" Clara whispered. The old woman's face was ashen, her shotgun shaking. "That's my brother, Thomas. I told him to stay in town." "Well, now, a family reunion," Webb called out, his voice dripping with poison. He put a pistol to Thomas's head. "Here is the deal, Clara. You walk out here, or this man dies. Then I burn this place to the ground with everyone in it." He promised to make the whole territory suffer, until she understood she was his property. Clara looked at the heartbreak on May's face. "Don't you do it," May pleaded. Thomas knew the risks, but Clara couldn't let another person die for her. She started for the door. Caleb caught her arm. "Clara, don't. This is his game." "If I don't, he dies," she said, her voice firm. "I am done watching people get hurt because of me. I will not do it again." She looked right at Caleb. "There is no other way." She gently pulled her arm from his grasp. "If I don't make it back," she whispered, "look after them." Then she did something that surprised them both. She leaned in and kissed him. For just a second, everything else faded away. His hand came up to her cheek, and a feeling she thought was long dead stirred inside her. Then she turned and walked out that door. Webb's smile made her stomach turn. "There she is," he sneered. "Let him go," Clara said, her voice steady. "You have me now." "What I want," he said, his smile vanishing, "is for you to remember your place. Get on your knees in that dirt and beg me to forgive you. Maybe then I will let him live." Clara's whole body screamed to fight back, but she saw the terror in Thomas's eyes. She took a breath and started to kneel. "Clara, stop." It was Caleb. He was walking toward them, his hands up and his gun belt gone. "Well, look here," Webb chuckled. "The hero." "Let her go," Caleb said plainly. "Your fight is with me." "You're right about that," Webb agreed, turning his pistol on Caleb. "But today, I'm just taking what belongs to me." "She doesn't belong to anyone," Caleb said. "She wears my brand," Webb shot back. "That makes her mine." Clara was trapped. Webb's gun was on Caleb, and Caleb stood there defenseless. Any move she made would get someone killed. Then she heard it, the faint thunder of hoofbeats, growing louder and louder from the east. Webb heard it too, and the smirk on his face finally faltered. A whole posse of riders appeared over the ridge. A man with a silver star on his chest led them. "Federal Marshal," Caleb whispered. The riders surrounded Webb and his men, guns drawn. The marshal rode straight up to Webb, his face like stone. "Marcus Webb, you are under arrest by order of the United States government." Webb's face contorted with rage. "You have no power here." "Sheriff Dawkins is in jail for taking your money," the marshal said, his voice cold as a river stone. "We've been building a case against you for 6 months. You were careful, but you made one big mistake." "What mistake?" Webb spat. The marshal looked past him. "You attacked the Harlow farm. Mr. Harlow and I served together in the war. When his daughter rode into Fort Griffin this morning for help, I brought every man I could find. Looks like we made it just in time. It was Jenny, standing right there in the doorway of May's cabin. "You rode all the way to Fort Griffin?" Clara asked, stunned. Jenny just nodded, her young face worn plumb out. "While y'all were sleeping," she said, "I figured we could not win this fight alone, so I went for help." Webb was still shouting and making threats, but his men were giving up one by one, dropping their guns as the lawmen closed in. Silas Kane tried to make a run for it, but was tackled clean off his horse before he got 50 feet. Clara watched it all unfold, but it felt like a dream. After 18 long months of living in fear, it was suddenly over. She felt a pair of hands on her shoulders and turned to see Caleb. "It is finished," he said quietly. "You are free." Her voice broke. "I do not know how to be free." He pulled her into his arms, and she let herself lean against him. "We will figure it out together." May appeared from the cabin with Jenny holding her up. The old woman's face was wet with tears, but she was smiling as she called out to her brother Thomas. Freed from Webb's men, he stumbled toward her, and they hugged in the middle of the yard. While the marshals finished their work, Clara saw them putting Webb in chains, the same kind he had once put on her. He caught her eye as they loaded him into the wagon, his gaze filled with pure hatred. "This is not over," he snarled. "I will get out. I will find you." "You will not do anything," a marshal interrupted, shoving him roughly into the wagon. "You're going to hang, Webb. The only question is which territory gets to do it first." The wagon rattled away, taking Marcus Webb out of her life for good. Clara expected to feel victory, but instead, she just felt a great, hollow emptiness. The hours after were a blur. Mrs. Harlow woke and cried for her lost husband, but clutched her daughter and thanked God for their survival. May bustled around, making coffee and bandaging wounds, with Thomas trailing behind her. Clara sat on the porch through it all, watching but not really seeing, the brand on her wrist pulsing with every heartbeat. Caleb sat down beside her as the sun began to set. "How are you doing?" "I am not sure," Clara admitted, staring at her hands. "I thought when he was gone I would feel like myself again. But I do not remember who I was." She looked up at him. "I was only a girl when my mother married that monster. I have spent more of my life being owned than I have being free. How do I go back to something I never really had?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. "You do not go back," he said. "You go forward." "To what?" "To whatever you want," he said, taking her hand. "You can go anywhere now, Clara. The whole world is open to you." "What if I do not want the whole world?" she whispered. "What if I just want—" She could not finish the sentence. "What do you want?" Caleb asked softly. Clara thought about the ranch, the horses, the garden, and the safety she felt when Caleb kept watch from the barn. She thought about his patience and his kindness, and how he had seen her as a person from the very start. "I want to stay," she said. "Here, with you, if that is still something you want." Caleb's face softened. "Clara, I have wanted you to stay since the moment you stepped off that auction platform. I just did not think I had the right to ask." "Why not?" "Because you spent so long with men deciding your future. I did not want to be another man telling you what to do. I wanted you to choose for yourself." He gave her hand a squeeze. "And now you have." A knot she had carried deep in her chest for years finally came loose. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, and for the first time she dared to believe things would be all right. They sat that way until the stars came out. The days that followed were quiet. The marshals left, taking their prisoners with them. Once Mrs. Harlow was strong enough to travel, she and Jenny went to stay with family in San Antonio, promising to write. May's brother Thomas went back to town, and May herself seemed lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. "I have waited my whole life to see someone stand up to men like Webb," she told Clara. "Seeing you do it, child, is like watching the world change." Clara and Caleb returned to his ranch. The cabin looked the same, but everything felt different. "I can sleep in the barn," Caleb said when they got inside, "until you are comfortable." "No," Clara said, taking his hand. "I do not want you in the barn anymore. I want you here with me." Caleb searched her face. "Are you sure?" "I am sure." That night they slept in the same bed, not out of necessity, but by choice. Clara curled against his side, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. The scars Webb left would take time to heal. But for the first time, Clara believed they could, because she was not alone. The hot summer weeks passed as Clara learned how to live again. She worked in the garden and helped Caleb with the horses. She even gentled the nervous mare that had been broken by a cruel hand, just like her. "She trusts me now," Clara said one morning, stroking the mare's nose. "Look, she is not flinching anymore." Caleb smiled. "Neither are you." Clara realized he was right. She had stopped bracing for a blow that was not coming. "May wants us to come for supper tonight," Caleb said. "She has got news." They rode to May's cabin at sunset. The old woman was on her porch in her best dress with a smile that took 20 years off her face. "You look happy," Clara said. "I am happy," May said, taking Clara's hands. "I had a letter from the marshal. Webb's trial is over. They found him guilty on all charges." Clara's breath caught. "He hangs next month in Austin. It is done, child. Really and truly done." Clara's knees felt weak, and Caleb's arm steadied her. "Are you all right?" he asked. She let out a laugh, a sound she hardly recognized as her own. "I think I am happy. I think this is what happy feels like." May pulled her into a fierce hug. "That is exactly what it feels like, child, and you deserve every bit of it." They celebrated that night with good food and good company, like a family. Later, as they rode home, under a sky full of stars, Caleb stopped his horse on the ridge overlooking his ranch. "Clara, I need to ask you something." He got down and held out a hand to help her. "I know it has not been long," Caleb said, "and I know what you have been through. But I love you, Clara. I have loved you since the day I saw you standing in that square, refusing to let them break you. I will love you for the rest of my life." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Let me finish," he said gently, taking her hands. "I am not asking you to marry me. Not yet. I am just asking, will you stay? Will you build a life here with me? Let me spend my days trying to make you happy." Clara looked at this man who had bought her freedom and asked for nothing. The man who slept in a barn so she could feel safe, who taught her to fight, and who had stood beside her when the whole world tried to drag her back into the dark. Standing there, watching the lawman lead Webb away, Clara felt the weight of the past finally lift. She had survived. She had found a family worth fighting for and a man worth loving. In the arms of the cowboy who had given her a chance, Clara finally knew she was more than a brand or a victim. She was a survivor. The summer of 1878 gave way to a peaceful autumn. Standing in the window of their cabin, she watched the leaves change, feeling a sense of quiet joy she never thought was possible. 3 months had passed since Webb was hauled off in chains. 3 months of learning how to be free. Caleb came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You're thinking too hard again," he said softly. He kissed her head. "May sent bread. She says we're expected for Sunday supper, and she's not taking no for an answer." Clara smiled. Sunday suppers were one of the new traditions she cherished. The nightmares were fading, and she no longer flinched at shadows. "I have something to show you," Caleb said, turning her to face him. "Down by the creek." "What is it?" "It's a surprise." They walked across the land together, the air crisp with the coming winter. "Creek," Caleb stopped and pointed toward a clearing. He asked, "What do you see over there?" Clara looked hard but saw nothing. just grass and wildflowers sloping down to the water. "I don't see a thing." "Good," he said. "That's because we haven't built it yet." Caleb took her hands in his. "I want to build a house here, Clara. A real home for us. And," he paused, "rooms for whatever the future holds." Clara's heart skipped a beat. He continued, "Only if you want it, though. I know you've had your fill of men deciding your life for you. If you ever wanted a real family, I'd be honored to build it with you. But only when you are ready." She thought of the 14-year-old girl she used to be, the one who dreamed of a husband and children. That girl got lost somewhere in Marcus Webb's saloon. But standing here with this good man, Clara felt that hopeful girl start to wake up. "I want it," she said, her voice soft. "I want a house, and I want a family. I want everything I thought was gone for good." Caleb pulled her into a hug. "Then, that is exactly what we will build." They started on the house the next week, hiring some good men from town. Clara worked right beside them, learning to measure, cut, and hammer. Her hands got tough, and her arms got strong. By the time the frame was up, she could swing a hammer with the best of them. An older worker named Tom told her one afternoon, "You are quite something, Miss Clara. I've never seen a lady take to building this way." Clara replied, "It feels good to make something instead of just trying to survive." Tom nodded. "I reckon it does. My late wife used to say building with your hands is like building with your heart. Every nail is a promise." Clara looked at the house taking shape. Every nail a promise. She liked the sound of that. Then one day in November, a letter came that changed everything. Caleb ran from the cabin, his face white as a sheet and his hands shaking. "What is it?" Clara cried, a spike of fear shooting through her. Caleb just held out the letter. "It is from the federal marshal. It is about Webb." Her blood ran cold. "Did he escape?" "No," Caleb said, his voice sounding strange. "They hanged him in Austin last week. But before he died, he confessed to everything. He named every person he ever hurt." Clara took the letter, her hands trembling as she read about a restitution fund for his victims. "I do not understand," she whispered. "The government took everything Webb owned," Caleb explained. "They are using it to pay back the people he wronged. And you are on that list, Clara. You are entitled to a large share." She stared at the number on the page. It was more money than she had ever imagined. "This cannot be right," she said. "Oh, it is right," Caleb assured her. "The marshal confirmed it. You are free, Clara. Truly free. You can go anywhere you want, do anything you please." 3 months ago, this money would have been a ticket to a new life far away. But now, "I do not want to go anywhere," she said. "I want to stay right here with you and May." "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "This is enough to start completely over." "I am sure," she said, looking up at him. "For 2 years, all I wanted was to run. I am done running, Caleb. This is my home. You are my home." "Then what will you do with the money?" Clara thought of Jenny Harlow, who dreamed of being a doctor, and Mrs. Harlow, who had lost her farm. She thought of all the women still trapped. "I want to help people," she said, "the way you and May helped me. I want to make sure nobody else has to go through what I did." Caleb smiled, a warm, knowing smile. "I had a feeling you would say that." They used the money to pay for Jenny's schooling at a medical college. They rebuilt the Harlow farm and made sure Mrs. Harlow would be comfortable for the rest of her days. They put a new roof on May's cabin, and Clara started a fund, run by the marshal's office, to buy the freedom of other trapped women. One evening, May told her, "You are changing the world, you know. Every life you save sends out ripples you will never even see." "I hope it is enough," Clara said. "Child," May replied, "you are already more than enough." Winter hit the ranch hard that year, covering everything in deep snow. But their new house was finished by Christmas Eve. Clara stood in the doorway, amazed at what they had built together. It had 4 rooms and a real kitchen. "What do you think?" Caleb asked, handing her a cup of hot cider. "It is perfect," she said. "Caleb, there is something I have to tell you." He got very still. "What is it?" "Well, I have been feeling a little peculiar lately, tired and sick some mornings." She watched his face as she took a breath. May thinks... May says I am going to have a baby." Caleb's cup fell from his hand and shattered. "What?" "I am pregnant, Caleb. We are going to be parents." He just stared for a moment, then the biggest smile she had ever seen spread across his face, lighting up his eyes. "A baby?" he whispered. "We are having a baby?" "Are you happy?" she asked. "Happy?" He grabbed her and spun her around, laughing. "Clara, I do not have the words for how happy I am." She laughed through her tears. A baby, a child of her own, something she was sure Webb had stolen from her forever. But he had not. Later that night, lying in their new bed, she put a hand on her stomach. "Are you scared?" Caleb asked, placing his hand over hers. "Terrified," she admitted. "What if I am no good at being a mother?" "Nobody knows how at first," he said softly. "We will learn together. Our child will know nothing but love, Clara. They will grow up safe and wanted and free." "How can you be so certain?" "Because that is what you have given to me," he said, kissing her forehead. "Our child will grow up watching two people who built something beautiful from broken pieces." Spring came slowly, melting the snow and bringing green back to the ranch. Clara's belly grew, and May fussed over her constantly with herbs and advice. "You are eating for two now," May would say, setting another plate down. "This baby is going to have a healthy appetite." "Good," Clara would reply. "A healthy appetite means a healthy baby." Jenny came home from medical school for Easter, full of stories. "They all said a woman could not be a doctor," she announced proudly. "But I showed them. I was at the top of my class in anatomy." Dr. Harrison had to admit she was his best student. And just like that, the ripples May talked about kept spreading outward, touching one life after another. One morning, as spring returned to the ranch, Clara made up her mind. "I want to do something," she told Caleb. She held up her wrist, showing the ugly raised W that still marked her skin. "I want this gone." Caleb looked at her, his expression serious. "Are you sure?" "May said it will be painful." "I have lived through worse," Clara said, tracing the scar. "I don't want to have to explain this for the rest of my life. I want to be completely free of him." "Then we will do it," he said without hesitation. May came the next day. She looked at the brand. "I can cut it away," she explained. "It's going to hurt something awful, and you'll have a new scar, but it will not be his mark." "Do it," Clara said. The process took a long time. Clara squeezed Caleb's hand, focusing on his strength, as May worked to finally set her free. Model. Clara bit down hard on the leather strap. She refused to scream while May's knife worked with a steady hand. Every single slice was a piece of him being carved away from her for good. When it was done, a clean bandage covered the spot where his mark had been. May washed her hands and said softly, "No more, Brand. Just you now." The words broke something inside Clara, and she finally let the tears come. Caleb held her close as she wept for everything she had lost, and for the freedom she had finally won. "It is over," she whispered into his chest. "Before, his claim was still on me, but now there is nothing left of him." Caleb held her face in his hands. "He never had a rightful claim on you, Clara. He only thought he did." Through her tears, she looked at him. "How did I find you?" He just smiled. "Maybe it was fate, or maybe just two folks who needed each other, finding one another when it mattered most." He gently wiped a tear from her cheek. 1 year later, on a blistering hot July day, their daughter was born. May and Jenny were both there to help. Clara's pains were long, and she hollered things at Caleb that made old May turn red. But the moment that tiny, perfect girl was in her arms, all the hurt faded away. She is so beautiful, Clara whispered. Caleb was crying freely. She has your eyes, and she sure has your stubborn streak. She had to come out on her own terms. They named her Hope, for the hope she brought back into their world. May rocked the newborn, singing a sweet old song. This one here, May said with a knowing smile. She is going to be something special. I can feel it in my bones. This little girl is going to change the world. Clara looked at her baby and said, she already changed mine. The next year flew by. Clara poured all her strength into being a mother, but she did not forget where she came from. She kept up with the fun. She started to help other women and wrote to Jenny, who was away at medical school. One evening, as she nursed Hope by the fire, Caleb watched her. You are different now, he said quietly. You smile without fear. You seem happy. Clara thought about that word. For so long, it felt like something that belonged to other people. I am happy, she admitted. I truly did not know if I could be again. I figured that part of me was buried too deep to ever find, but it was not dead, just waiting. Waiting for what? He asked. For someone like you to show me it was safe. Caleb came and knelt by her chair, his hand resting on her knee. I need you to know something, Clara. You saved yourself. All I did was open the gate for you. That was everything, she said. But the strength to walk through it, he replied. That was all you. A few years passed. Clara stood on their porch, watching the Texas sky blaze with color at sunset. Their daughter Hope was now chasing a new hound named Scout. Inside, their 2-year-old son Samuel was sleeping soundly. Caleb came and put his arm around her. What is on your mind? He asked. Clara gazed at the home they had built from scratch. I'm thinking about the girl I used to be, she said. The one on that platform who was certain her life was over. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I wish I could tell her that the worst day of her life would lead to the very best part of it. Since I cannot go back, I tell the women we help now. I tell them that just surviving is not the end. It is a new beginning. Do they believe you? He asked. Some do, she said with a small smile. But all of them get a chance. That is more than I almost had. Just then, Hope ran up to them, excited about a rabbit hole Scout had found, and the family spent the evening together, enjoying the simple peace of their life. After the children were asleep, Clara and Caleb sat on the porch under the stars. I received a letter from Jenny, Clara said. She finished top of her class and is coming home to open her own medical practice. That is wonderful news, Caleb said. She wants my help, Clara continued. She needs someone to talk to the women who have been through what I went through. She thinks they will open up to me. And what did you tell her? He asked. I told her yes. Clara took his hand. I have spent 5 years healing. Now it is time for me to help others do the same. They sat in the comfortable quiet that comes from years of shared trust. Caleb, she said softly, thank you for giving me this life I never imagined I could have. He turned to her, his eyes soft in the moonlight. You never need to thank me, he said. Everything I did was because it was the right thing to do. The moment I saw you on that stage, I knew you were worth fighting for. Clara leaned in and kissed him. I love you, Caleb Dawson. I love you too, Clara Dawson. She smiled when she heard her name. It was the name she had chosen for herself. She was not a piece of property. She was a wife, a mother, and a survivor. She was Clara Dawson, a woman who was saved by a kind cowboy. But more than that, she was a woman who learned that even after the deepest wounds, you can still heal. She learned that a broken life can be rebuilt, and love can grow in the most unlikely of places. Looking at the stars above their home, with her children sleeping inside and the man she loved beside her, she knew she had built a life worth every bit of the fight. She knew in her bones she was right where she belonged. Not owned, not broken, not defined by her past. She was free, loved, and whole. The brand on her wrist was now a faint scar. But even when Webb's mark was there, it never defined her. She finally understood. A person's body can be chained, but their soul can never be caged. And Clara's soul had always been free. She stood, taking Caleb's hand. "Come to bed," she said softly. "Just a minute," he answered, pulling her close. "I want to remember this feeling, like I have everything I ever wanted." She smiled against his chest. "We have tomorrow, Caleb. We have the rest of our lives. That is what freedom means. Choosing each other every single day." "Then I choose you," he said. "Today and forever. And I choose you." They walked inside, leaving the stars to guard the life they built. Marcus Webb was dead and buried. The brand was gone and the chains were broken. Clara Dawson, who was once just property called Whitmore, was finally truly free. She once wore a collar forced on her by men who thought they owned her. A good cowboy cut it off. But what Caleb Dawson gave her was worth more than freedom from steel. He gave her a chance to find out who she could be when her past no longer had a hold on her. And she became a wife, a mother, and a healer of other broken women. A survivor who was now thriving. That was her truth. Her victory. Nothing could ever take that from her. Clara closed the door of her home, kissed her sleeping children, and lay down next to the man who saved her. Tonight, she was at peace. She was home, and that was enough. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.